My name's Ed Robson, and I'm the managing shareholder of Robson and Robson PC. We are a business law firm located outside of Philadelphia, and we represent closely held businesses and their owners in a variety of matters. I focus my practice primarily on commercial litigation, and what I want to talk to you about tonight is what I call conflict emails. And conflict emails are nothing more than emails from someone within an organization to an individual or another business about a conflict. And what that conflict is doesn't really matter. It can be anything. It can be a dispute with a customer. It can be a dispute with a competitor over an employee with a non-compete. It can be a merger and acquisition transaction that went bad. Doesn't matter. These conflict emails, though, tend to be important because if those disputes devolve into litigation, those conflict emails can often set the tone and trajectory of the litigation. And we've had clients who do a fantastic job putting together conflict emails. And those emails can really put the client at an advantage if it does end up in litigation. On the other hand, we have clients who are not so great at writing conflict emails. And when those emails show up in court and those disputes devolve into litigation, sometimes the clients are fighting a headwind that really could have been avoided with a little bit better preparation, a little bit better job done on those conflict emails. So what I want to talk to you about tonight is a few tips, a few things to think about when you are engaged in that conflict email process. Our first suggestion, or our first thing to think about, is make sure you are putting your conflict emails in context. Nobody likes to have their words taken out of context. That applies with particular emphasis and particular force in conflict emails. So one of the things that I see clients do all the time is they will send a short email that followed a phone conversation, but never reference the phone conversation or that there was something going on outside the four corners of the email. Those type of emails can bite you. It's tedious, it's tiresome, nobody likes having to do it, but make sure you're putting your emails in context of the entire dispute. The next point I want to talk about is write your emails as if you're writing them to a judge or a jury. You can be assured that your conflict email in one way or another is going to end up in front of a judge or a jury. Depending on what the email is, if it's particularly bad, you may find yourself sitting on a witness stand having to read your own words to a jury. So when you're crafting these emails, write them like they are being read to a jury and or a judge is reviewing them. Pick your words carefully. Don't use profanity. Don't go off the handle. Skip the invective. Stick to the facts. Appear reasonable. And put yourself in the best position that you can as if you were in front of a judge or a jury, because those emails are going to end up there. The third point is somewhat tricky for some people for whatever reason, and that is don't admit to things if they aren't true. It sounds obvious, but I think that in many normal non-business interpersonal relationships, your relationship with a spouse, your relationship with a family member, a friend, if you get into an argument and you're at the makeup period of the argument, I think there's a tendency to say, oh, it was my fault, or I could have done something better, or I'm so sorry. This is the oil that helps the gears of interpersonal relationships move along. It's how we all get by. With respect to conflict emails, don't do that. So if something's not true, don't say that it's true. Don't say, oh, well, we screwed up, or we could have done something differently if that's not the case. Now, that doesn't mean your emails always have to be cantankerous or off-putting or argumentative. A different approach might be to say, you and I disagree on what happened here, or we have a different version of the facts, but this is how I want to move forward. By doing it that way, you've preserved the dispute, You haven't admitted that anything's wrong, and you've made it clear that you're just trying to move past it. That subtle distinction can really make a big difference if those emails end up in court, if the dispute ends up in litigation. The next thing I want to talk about is consider whether what you're about to say belongs in an email at all. I don't have to tell you that there's a lot of context, body language, tone of voice, lots of nonverbal communication cues that get lost in an email. Before you fire off that email, consider, would it be better over the phone? Would it be better in a Zoom meeting? When we get out of coronavirus, would it be better with an in-person meeting? Also consider that emails can be forwarded incredibly easily. We've had clients have their conflict emails spread throughout an organization, sent to news media, posted online. So if you have any concern about that, you might be better picking up the phone. The final point is perhaps so obvious that it's not worth stating, except that I see this rule constantly violated. And it's a simple one. It is, consider what you want to happen as a result of your conflict email. Why are you writing this email in the first place? And there's a lot of legitimate reasons for writing these emails, but they tend to fall into a few different categories. So it's a good idea to write an email if you're correcting somebody else's misstatement of the facts. So if you're in a conflict and somebody's rambling off stuff that's just not true, don't let that go unanswered. It's perfectly legitimate to write a follow-up email that puts their email in context. Rule number one, put it in context, right? Perfectly legitimate. Another perfectly legitimate and appropriate reason for a conflict email is you want something to happen. You want somebody to do or not do something, to give you something, whatever it is. You want somebody to take an action. But there's certain reasons for conflict emails that are always wrong. To punish the other person, to get something off your chest, to vent. If fundamentally that's the real reason you're sending a conflict email, don't send it. It's not going to help. It's not going to help later. It's likely going to escalate things, and it can only hurt in litigation. Don't forget, silence can be an incredibly effective technique. Just don't let that silence become acquiescence.